Thank you, Mari. That was wonderful. Thank you, Reverend Michael. Reverend Michael, as you heard, his father passed away recently, and so when that happened, I think both of us intuitively knew it was really important that Michael share some about his relationship with his dad here today as a way for us all to connect with the masculine in our lives. I don't usually call people out in the crowd, but I just want to honor my friend Dustin, who's in the back there. He comes here from time to time, but Dustin's my spiritual bro, has been there for me in so many different ways. And, sometimes you wonder how you get the way you are, but I'm a lot the way I am because of his support in my life. So I just want to honor your presence here and honor your beautiful family. And our message this morning is hey, Armand, it's good to see you too, man. Our message today is born again and again. And it's not a talk about reincarnation, nor one about getting saved, although I do think I'm going to sin as much as possible since I know the holy bowlers are going to be praying over us on Wednesday. Just get it all out of my system. But I wouldn't call birth a pretty process, would you? Whether you're giving birth or being born or going through rebirth in your life, it can be a beautiful thing overall, especially watching from far beyond, but it's challenging, right? I was born, but I didn't give birth, so I don't know. It's challenging to transform, and rebirth seems to be something that we're doing throughout our whole lives. With these high holy days of Mother's Day and Father's Day, when you really think about them, they're not necessarily about honoring that which gave birth to us, because most of us don't remember being born. Some of us do. It's kind of trippy. What we're really honoring are those presences in our lives that helped us through our many rebirths, that were there to watch us often struggle and make mistakes and love us anyways and grit their teeth to help see us into the people we are today. And so we honor those presences of mom and dads in our past, but also hopefully that biological and chosen family around us today that continues to inspire us in being reborn. Life is certainly about living. It certainly is not about dying. And I always get pretty depressed when I look around and see people who see themselves as dying as opposed to living. Because certainly what can happen is if we refuse this idea of transformation in our lives, of newness in our lives, of rebirth in our lives, we find ourselves in a kind of stagnation, and we miss out. Maybe we don't notice it right away, but we miss out on that feeling of being really alive and a part of this beautiful thing called nature around us. I brought some quotes to share with us today on stagnation and holding back. One is on living from T.S. Eliot, who said, "I don't believe one grows older. I believe that what happens early on in life is that at a certain age, one stands still and stagnates." Does that sound true? Another one on your life's work from Florence Kennedy. She said, "The greatest sin is sitting on your ass." Does that sound about right? Speaking on relationships, Ines Nin said, "Love never dies a natural death. It dies because we don't know how to replenish its source. It dies of blindness and errors and betrayals. It dies of illness and wounds. It dies of weariness, of witherings, of tarnishings." Does that sound true? Speaking on aging, Carl Rogers said, "I don't think of myself as growing older, but as older and growing." And speaking on creativity, Martin Fisher said, "A conclusion is the place where you got tired thinking." And I think we can apply that to our living by saying that finality is that place where you got tired living your life. I appreciate calm and quiet and comfort and peace as much as anybody else, but I know they are illusory if they're not included in the river of change, the river of transformation. Slowing down is essential to any life journey, to appreciate, to pause, yet so is moving forward. Slowing down is essential to the journey, but so is moving forward. And when we hold ourselves back, when we resist rebirth in our lives, we often reject that very thing that our heart is longing for, to step into life more abundantly, to be renewed, inspired, and transformed in an unknown space sometimes, but nonetheless in real powerful ways. This rebirthing process isn't just something that we do in our youth, but it's something that we carry on with us all throughout life. It's been fun. This is actually the last copy, so we'll auction it off today, but we have a fun book of the month this month. We'll have more next week, but it's a book called 80 Things to Do When You Turn 80. Which is fun to read even in your 30s. And the reason, to be honest, why it's our book of the month is because it includes 80 authors giving advice on being in your 80s, and one of them is our own Reverend Margie Clark. There she is. Reverend Margie, will you raise your hand, everybody? And boy, there's some great pieces in here. There's life lessons for your 80s and beyond. There's one called A Work in Progress. There's one called Volunteering for the Peace Corps at 86. The Reverend Margie's section is called Life is a Gift, Live It Fully. And there's even one called There is Still Sex and Romance at 80. So I was very excited about getting to Reverend Margie's piece, but being a 36-year-old male, you can tell which one I turned in. I don't care if it's about someone in their 80s or not. I had to find out what was in store for me later on in life. Desiree Holt, the author, she shares, at a time in my life when I'm sure my family thought I'd be reading on the back patio and watching television with my cats, I managed to fool them all. Why? Because I gave in to my addiction to romance novels, not just reading them, but writing them. She goes on to say, I'm frequently asked why a woman who is 80 wants to write erotic romance. First of all, I ask them, who would have more experience to draw from than someone my age? And lastly, she shares, I've had so many funny things happen when people meet me and realize I fit well into the senior citizen category. I guess they think if you're over 45, you don't know what romance is. I tell them that is when it just begins. I'm even writing a series for couples 55 and over. It's never too late to write, and it's never too late to love. So all I can say to that is, you go, girl, right? You know, we're always transforming, and we should always put ourselves in the direction of growth, even when it's a little scary. And I'll get back to Reverend Margie's piece a little later, but before I do, I just want to share 3 remembrances, 3 things to remember when it comes to being born again and again in our lives. And the first is to know that change is about you and not about them. Change is about you and not about them. It's interesting because I meet a lot of people, and what they really want more than anything is change and rebirth. But they're often afraid to admit it. They think that by admitting they want to change, they may somehow disappoint people around them, or they may be letting go of a sense of comfort they have in their lives, when change is what they really, really want. And what these people find sometimes is they're unable to be honest about it, and so they start blaming people around them as an excuse to try to get themselves to embrace change. Oh, you wouldn't believe my husband. He's so lazy. He's so picky. His socks stink so bad. And you know what they say, change your thinking, change your wife. You know, change your husband, change your life. That could work. Or I hear someone complaining about, their job. Everything's out of integrity. I just can't take it anymore. And usually what I realize after listening is, wasn't your husband always that way? Wasn't your job kind of always like that? Perhaps it's not them that have changed, but perhaps you that need changing and transforming. That doesn't mean get rid of your husband. It doesn't mean get rid of your job, but it means step up and be honest about your desire for change and transformation. And embrace, if you can, one of the most challenging teachings we have in Science of Mind, which is if you pursue what is highest and best for you, it is highest and best for everyone around you. If you are willing to pursue what is highest and best for you, it is highest and best for everyone around you. Let it be in integrity. Let it be in clarity, but step in to your rebirth and you will be rewarded. A second remembrance is that you can't change the same way twice. You can't change the same way twice. You can't have the same epiphany twice. It's no longer new. It's no longer brand new. A lot of us suffer from what I call the Nicodemus fallacy. And how many people here know who Nicodemus is in the Gospel of John? He's a wise man there, and he has some questions for Jesus one day, and he asks Jesus, how does one enter the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus says, you must be born again. And Nicodemus, he wonders, he goes, what? Do I have to crawl back into my mother's womb? And that's the fallacy right there. Thinking that we can change our future by going back through our past. The river of change is always moving forward, and if we are unwilling to move forward with it, we'll get lost. We'll drown in it. There's nothing wrong with rituals. There's nothing wrong with traditions that get us prepared and ready for newfound change, but it's not until we step into the new, yes, step into the unknown, that we can welcome transformation to take place. As everyone here knows, I have the perfect marriage, right? But when it's not perfect, I think I know what warms my partner's heart. You know, I know that she likes a note here or there. She likes a big hug. She really loves pizza. You can get her some pizza. She loves it when I sing her corny 90s songs. But what I know is although that helps heal things or bring things to a present place, that real change or rebirth can't happen for us in the way that it's being called forth unless we're willing to step into something new. Unless we're willing to create new boundaries with each other, or to create new guidelines, or even more intimate or deeper communication. So there are traditions and rituals in our lives that we can go back to that help lead us present, but unless we are moving forward, we're suffering from this fallacy that Nicodemus had, that the way to enter into new life is to go back into the old. The old is there to support us, to remind us, to teach us, and yet it should only be a foundation in which we build our future, not something that we fall back upon. That's why Jesus answers Nicodemus by saying, you must be reborn of the Spirit. If you want to enter the kingdom of God, you must be reborn of the Spirit. And to me, that means simply to step into the new, to step into brand new life, to have a willingness for a brand new way of being, that you don't inform it what it's going to be, but it informs you of what will be and of who you really are. A final important remembrance is either you trust or you don't. When it comes to rebirth, either you trust or you don't. When we step into the unknown, it can certainly be scary, and so our greatest tool can be trust. I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a hard time trusting people because people have let me down in the past. And sometimes I have a tough time trusting situations because situations sometimes don't work out the way that I tell them to. And what I would say to that is being willing to be reborn isn't as much about trust in people, as much as that helps if you can have it, or trust in situations, because it's great if you can have that too, but you don't have to. But there is something about trusting in what we call the process, of trusting in God and in the light when you step into those unknown spaces. And most importantly, there's something about trusting in your virtues, trusting in your values, being willing to step into the unknown, but in full trust in the power of honesty and authenticity. To be able to step into the unknown, yes, but in true faith in the power of unconditional love. To step into the unknown, but to do so with full faith in your integrity and in your values. And when we step in with faith in those, I don't know what your experience is, but mine tells me that my virtues and values come forth in a very profound way that doesn't just bless the situation, but helps me step more profoundly into being who I am. I often say sometimes I won't follow some people anywhere, but when it comes to my virtues, I'll follow them into hell if need be, because I have such faith in their working. And to really trust your values is to really trust your true self. There are so many great conversations between fathers and sons, fathers and daughters out there, but I did want to just share a couple briefly with you that inspired me. One speaks to this idea of virtue, and it comes from a conversation between a man and his son during the most riotous time of the civil rights struggle in the early 1960s. And it's an African-American father with his African-American son, and the African-American father is out there protesting every day. He's getting beat up by cops. His life is in danger on a regular basis as he's fighting for freedom. And his son wants to go out there with him, his teenage son, and he says, absolutely not. You have to stay safe. You have to stay here. His son answered him, Daddy, I don't want to disobey you, but I have made my pledge. If you try to keep me home, I will sneak off. If you think I deserve to be punished for that, I'll just have to take the punishment. For you see, I'm not doing this only because I want to be free. I'm doing it also because I want freedom for you and Mama, and I want it to come before you die. And the father gave his son his blessing. There's something, right, about following your virtue that will help lead you through any status quo situation to demonstrate it in a greater way. Another conversation I admire is one from the 60s as well. It's from the Oklahoma University football coach Bud Wilkinson, a famous coach to his son Jay. And Jay was a great football player and was supposed to go to Oklahoma, but decided to go to Duke instead at the last minute. And he was scared to death there, but his father wrote him the following letter. He said, when any person leaves a pleasant situation to enter the unknown, there is always the realization of how nice, good, and comfortable things were before. Yet only by facing the future and accepting new and progressively more difficult challenges are we able to grow, develop, and avoid stagnation. You have more total, all-around ability in all fields than anyone I have ever known. You will certainly be a great man and make a great contribution to the world. But to do this, you must take on new and great contribution and progressively more difficult challenges. You will grow and develop in direct relationship to the way you meet and overcome what at first seems to be hard assignments. You will learn to love Duke, to take great pride in the school and their football team. You're that kind of person. By developing as a student and an athlete, you will prepare yourself to do bigger and better things when you graduate. There's nothing like that trust that comes in knowing that your Father is with you. Be it your biological one, a chosen one, or that divine presence with us always. Always there to nurture us and help us step into the new. Reverend Margie's piece in the 80 Things to Do When You Turn 80, which we're offering for $100 right here, right now. No, we'll have more next week, and someone will take this one. She gives a very simple formula for being born again and again and living a full life. She just says every day, nurture your body, your mind, and your spirit. And every day, one of the things Reverend Margie does to honor her body is she takes a mile walk around the park. For her mind, one of the things that she does is she contributes to Toastmasters and participates in that wonderful program, or she attends discussion in classes here at the church. To nurture her spirit, every day she takes time to nurture one of her connections, to really connect heart to heart somewhere out there in the world. And she says quite profoundly, life in our 80s has so much to offer. I'm able to spend time in ways I choose. My life is enriched daily by the sharing of others, hearing about their experiences, interests, and ideas. This is a time that each of us can explore new meaning in what life is all about and pursue the rich opportunities it offers. Life is good, and I choose to live it fully each and every day. Life is good, and I choose to live it fully each and every day. It's a powerful statement to me. It doesn't sound like just some cliche affirmation to say in the mirror or a pick-me-up. You know, I get a sense of someone who's really earned what that statement really is. It takes courage to make a statement like that, and it takes even more courage to live a statement like that, to believe wholeheartedly that, yes, this life is good, to commit wholeheartedly to seeking, even in the midst of challenges, to live in joy, to make that commitment no matter what every day, to seek to connect to the sacred heart of life, knowing it is not only essential to our own growth, but to that heart of life that we inspire, because certainly we need to see more of it in the world around us. So if you are willing to declare this affirmation with me and say, life is good.
Life is good.
And I choose to live it fully.
And I choose to live it fully.
Each and every day.
Each and every day.
Life is good.
Life is good.
And I choose to live it fully.
And I choose to live it fully.
Each and every day.
Each and every day.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Thanks for your time, everybody. We'll be